All right, Craig Douglas with the Good Roads Foundation, Chris Perkins with WPA Opinion Research. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Talk a little bit about the results of the WPA poll that Good Roads Foundation commissioned here. My takeaway is that Arkansans support better highways, more highway funding, but they might not support how to pay for it. So what's your takeaway?
Well, the Arkansas voter has proven that when they are informed of the benefits of additional highway funding, that they're willing to support it. The key is to get them the information they need to make the decision. One thing is clear, though, they want to make a decision on highway funding.
Yeah. Chris, what was your takeaway? Obviously, as the person that conducted the poll here, oversaw all aspects of it. If you had to put a headline on it, what would you say it is?
I think the headline is the voters of the state do see the value and the need for more highway funding. They see it as an essential service. They see better highways as a necessary component for economic growth and job growth, continued job growth, and they see this as a necessary means. We need more funding for highways.
Let's look at some of the options that were presented to voters and kind of some of the responses to that. I think we have a graph on that. Basically, 67% said that if you could refer highway tax increase to voters, they would be supportive of that. 54% support eliminating the grocery tax as a way to supplement some revenue. 46% for transferring like sales tax on vehicles for highway funding. 43% changed the gas tax formula to keep up with inflation. 24% just favor increasing the gas tax. And I know there's some options that you guys presented in that. Why do you think referring that tax increase is the most popular way, Craig?
Well, again, what the research indicates is that when it comes to taxation, Arkansas voters don't necessarily want their legislators to decide that. They want to decide it. When it comes to using a certain portion of general revenue for highways that don't increase taxes, they're all over that. They understand the benefits, and they understand that part of the taxes they pay into general revenue, if it's road user revenue, they want it to go to highways.
That's a hard education campaign, though, to kind of push.
I don't know if it's that hard, but you do have to inform them about the fact that, for instance, the sales tax on new and used vehicles goes into general revenue. It doesn't go to highways.
Right.
Most people think that it does. When you let them know that it doesn't, they're willing to support moving that money.
Chris, referring highway tax increases to voters is not tantamount to passing a highway tax increase. So kind of what do the numbers show? Maybe drill down a little bit deeper into some of the crosstabs. What type of voters support increasing taxes for highways?
Well, very few. What this says on when we just give them the option of increasing the gas tax, you only see 24% that would support that as it relates to if your state legislator voted to increase the gas tax. So the voters don't necessarily see, regardless of what stripe, Republican, Democratic voters, or independent voters, don't see the necessary means of state legislators voting them a tax increase. However, from a gas tax perspective, if they have the choice to decide when and how much, they would be open to at least allowing their voice to be heard versus a state legislator voting to increase the gas tax for them.
In that one particular question about referring the highway tax increase to voters, did you see some differences in political persuasion or gender or anything in the crosstabs there?
No, and that was one of the beauties of seeing this. You know, it's very rare in survey research where you see Republicans and Democrats on the same side of any sort of issue, but when it comes to referring it to the voters, it's a nonpartisan issue. Republicans and Democrats and independents all want their voice to be heard if we're going to increase revenue, but at the same time, the numbers are all the same as it relates to re-electing their legislator. 68% of voters statewide, it said if their legislator voted to increase funding, that they would be more likely to re-elect them, and that's a nonpartisan issue.
This is one of the things I think probably would solve a lot of problems is if we did index the gas tax to inflation, and that was a question that was posed in here. Only 43% supported that. Why do you think that number is so low, Craig? Because that is a potential solution to not have to come back and repeatedly increase taxes or vote to increase taxes?
I think that it does get a plurality, but I believe that probably it is perceived, number one, it could be perceived as a wholesale increase in the gas tax. Second thing is that when you talk about, as the question said, having the gas tax keep up with inflation, folks are not really sure what the index would be tied to. So there may be some confusion there. But it does receive a plurality. And I think when you look at the other research Chris did, that in terms of the amount that they would be willing to support increasing per year based on an index, 2 cents a year gets a majority favorable approval.
All right. I noticed too that one of the questions you asked on that transfer tax on vehicles actually included some language without raising taxes, which
Yes.
some of the other questions in that battery did not in that respect. Is that phrase, does that change the outcome, do you think?
I don't know if it's Illinois that it changes, but it definitely drives the point home. I mean, if there is, I think we worded it, transfer existing sales tax on new and used vehicles for state highway improvements without increasing taxes. And the reason why I got that support is, yes, part of it is this is not a new tax increase, but if people are paying for vehicles, I think it makes sense for that vehicles to go to make sure that we have good highways to drive on, as long as it's not increasing our own taxes.
So you got all of this information now, Craig. You've made a big presentation this past week. What do you do with it now?
The purpose of the research was to attempt to provide the governor and the legislature with some guidance on what the electorate not only is thinking about, but is willing to support. Support in terms of a legislative session, which might be a special session, but also what they would be willing to support if it were a ballot issue on the general election ballot. So it's to provide guidance, and it's to really continue the conversation.
All right, Craig Douglas, Chris Perkins, thank you both for being with us. Appreciate you.